opportunities are going to show up often when you least expect it. And so you can't afford to have to get ready.
Hello there, it's me, Steve Mellor, and welcome in to GrowthReady, the podcast that allows high performers to reveal the reality behind what it means to ready yourself for growth, the personal and professional challenges along the growth journey, while also allowing the high-performance executive coach in me to satisfy his curiosity toward what drives optimal performance. On this episode, we welcome in Tamara Jackson, a leader and steward of intentional living in her role as a podcast host and business coach. Tamara insists that for us to honor our growth plan, we must honor the gifts and opportunities we've had bestowed upon us. The question, however, is, are we ready to live into our potential? This episode is brought to you by Scribe, the workflow AI platform that automatically turns any process into a beautiful shareable guide in seconds. Say goodbye to manual screenshots or typing out step-by-step instructions and join the already 4 million people working 15 times faster with Scribe. Get started today at scribehow.com. That's SCRIBEHOW.com. Hello there, and welcome back into the most recent installment of Growth Ready. I am so excited to be welcoming in Tamara Jackson to the show today. And before we learn about all the incredible insights that I know are coming our way, courtesy of this conversation, Tamara, I want to ask you what I ask everybody as we get started. What does it mean to you to be growth ready?
Steve, thanks for the opportunity to share with you and the audience. I've thought about this question because, as a part of my preparation process for getting on your show, I listened to some prior episodes and I said, okay, this is a consistent thing that comes up in every conversation. And as I reflected on it, for me, Steve, it's about intentionality. What I've come to believe is that opportunities are going to show up often when you least expect it. And so you can't afford to have to get ready. You need to be ready for those opportunities. So that means that when it's tempting to follow kind of the comfortable path of doing the same thing that everyone else is doing, you need to be intentional about developing the disciplines to be ready for those opportunities. So for me, that is a combination of spiritual and practical disciplines. There's a lot that I just am not going to know. And that, I've just celebrated, 51 years on the planet. And the longer I live, the more I realize that there's very little that I actually know. So trying to know everything, I've learned is not the answer. But what I can do is be intentional about preparing for what I'm believing for. And doing the internal work. That's what I think of when I think of intentionality, is doing the internal work that is necessary to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented and be a good steward of them. Because some people get opportunities and they're not good stewards.
My goodness, so much. We could just press stop right now, Tamara, and just like, folks, that's it. That's your lot for today. You don't need any more, because, right off the bat, so much of what you're saying resonates on a number of levels for me. Firstly, as a human. Secondly, as a man of faith. Thirdly, as an organization too, in terms of my business and what it is I'm aspiring to do in the work I do as a coach, as a speaker, etc. This is resonating on all platforms for me right now. And I want to go to the first way in which it resonated for me, just the man, the human that I am, is you get right into it there straight away when you acknowledge the little that we know. And with that, I always associate that with the little that is in our control as well. We have so much that we don't know. And it immediately makes me think, well, if we don't know, how much can we actually therefore control? But what you're alluding to already is the ability to not be lured into the idea of knowing it all or controlling it all, but to actually find an element of acceptance. Am I hearing that?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Tell me more about the acceptance.
Yeah, and I think for me, Steve, this has been something that I've fought for a long time. Like, if I do this, then I'm going to have all my bases covered. Nothing's going to catch me by surprise, and I am the master of my own fate, because that's a lot of what the culture tells us.
Sure.
But life experiences have taught me that it's just not true. There's always going to be things that come up that you never could have anticipated. And, the pandemic is, of course, an example that everyone can identify with. No one saw that coming. But we also experience that in our everyday life. I think we have our own versions of these experiences that come up that we're totally blindsided by. So what I've come to realize is that there's a degree of unknown that's always going to be present. And the best thing that I can do is to accept that, make peace with it. And for me as a person of faith, what brings me comfort is it's catching me by surprise, but it's not catching God by surprise. So I don't have to have it all covered. Yeah. I have to do what I'm responsible for, because I believe, Steve, that, there are some things that only God can do, but there's some things that only I can do. So I have to focus on what I can control, doing the work that I know needs to be done, and then I have to release the rest.
Yeah, it's so, I hope people are hearing this, like there's the opportunity for complete empowerment when we work on training our minds this way. And I want to be very intentional about using that word, the training component, because you alluded to your age. I don't need to repeat it, but you alluded to your age.
I'm okay with it, Steve. It's all right.
Just want to be sure. But I'm 40 years, 50 years, whatever it may be on the planet, you sit in that and you go, well, I didn't just sort of wake up one day and realize this. Even if I did, the ability to execute did not come that easy. I have to have trained the way in which I perceive and experience this thing that we call life in a way so that I can avoid the maybe natural response that the majority of folks are leaning into, and instead have that discipline. You use that word in your initial response. Use that discipline to see as I need to see and act as I need to act. And like that, that is, again, from an empowerment standpoint, I'm just curious, what juncture was it for you? If you maybe there wasn't just a single moment or a single juncture, but can you maybe at least assess a certain phase and period in your life where what was difficult has now become this clear awareness that you now have?
Yeah, so it's actually been a process, as you've alluded to. And I think, as an entrepreneur, as a person who had a successful, but, at times challenging career in corporate as well, those experiences taught me, hey, there's a lot that's outside of your control. For example, reorganizations and restructuring. All of a sudden, this job that you were doing, hey, you're not doing that anymore. We want you to do this. And it was, you could be really great at your job, but the needs of the company have changed. And then as an entrepreneur, ultimately the market determines, kind of how we operate, right? Yeah. Because we can go down this path. It can be working really well right now, and then the market can change, and then you have to be adaptable and shift. But I think the biggest piece for me was, I can, go back in time. It really wasn't that long ago, so a really pretty recent experience for me. My mom was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer in May of 2022. And so that was something that I did not see coming. I know now that she knew that there were signs for that, but I didn't see it coming, right? And so, all of the things that I thought our life would be like, because my mom and I were really, really close. And so I, as many kids do, think mom's going to be here forever. She's always going to be kind of that, that rock, that resource for me. And so going through that experience and now all of a sudden hearing, your mom has a 50-50 chance of being here 1 year from now, not 5 years from now or 10 years from now, 1 year from now, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
And so that was, I think, kind of the point where it really became clear to me, a lot of this is just acceptance and realizing, not necessarily accepting, okay, we're going to accept this cancer diagnosis and we're not going to do everything that we can.
Sure.
We did. We fought it, right?
Sure.
But ultimately, whether she was able to recover from that or not really wasn't in our control. And so I would say that was kind of the moment when it was like, man, she's the person that I looked up to, and, not a perfect parent or person, but so many things that she did right. She was successful in her career. She was very generous. She was a person of faith, and a lot of the values that I got from her. And, she made the right decisions financially. All of these things, and she had all of these great plans. And then all of a sudden, all the plans are blown up, right? And so that just helped me to realize, there are a lot of unknowns in life. And the best thing that you can do is to make sure that you are at peace with the fact that there's only but so much that really is within, my sphere of influence. And, that I would say that was the biggest moment for me.
I'm sure. Thank you for sharing that. And I think you use that word peace just now, and I almost want to reframe that word acceptance with that word peace. I think it's a much more relevant word for the conversation we're having, because as you alluded to there, when we say acceptance, sometimes it almost comes with this tone of like, am I giving up in some way?
Yeah.
Like it depending on how it's being used in context. Whereas the notion of peace, it's like you have the acceptance part of it, but you also have there's almost a foundation of just support and structure within you as well. When you say peace, you say I have a peace, but it's a peace of mind in a calm way, and it allows me to see things for what they are and how they're being presented to me in this moment. And hearing that story that you've gone through there with your mom, to understand that coming out of that, the gift of that was the peace of mind that so much of this world going on around us, at least from your perspective, is incredibly out of your control. And even the greatest plan in the world can be completely, derailed at any point. And I do now want to go to that immediate word that you use, because any client of mine listen to this will immediately say, man, Steve, she said your word, intention. Like that's your word, Steve. And while I rarely sort of throw it out at the very beginning when I work with clients, I almost allow the word to present itself in our work through over the course of time. But I'm curious, when you look at that word intention, if you were to maybe put your own Tamara spin and definition around it, like how would you maybe frame that for us in a way where we can really get a grip of, hey, this is what Tamara thinks it means for us to show up with intentionality?
Yeah. So when I think about that, Steve, I actually think about the opposite. So the opposite of intentionality to me is allowing inertia to control your life. I talk to my friends and clients and colleagues about this a lot, because from my perspective, inertia is everywhere. Like there's this continuous force that is pulling us towards what is comfortable, what is safe, what is sometimes simple. And, not to say that there aren't times in life where, we don't want to be going at full speed all the time. Like there's definitely a place for rest and reflection. As a matter of fact, I believe that fuels high performance. At the same time, I can even confess for myself, Steve, when I think about growing up and, going through grade school and even high school, if I'm honest, Steve, I didn't give it my best. I really didn't. Like I was blessed with
right back at you.
I was blessed with the ability to sit in class and to be able to hear what was said and retain much of it.
Sure.
So what that meant for me was that I didn't study. I did my homework in class, sadly. And so what that meant was that I was able to get fairly good grades. I took AP classes, all of those things. So I got good grades and I was able to kind of coast along without really pushing myself, but so much. And that's what I mean when I think about inertia is, man, I'm doing enough compared to this person or that person, or I'm meeting the expectation that my parents have of me. So I'm good. I'm just going to go ahead and stay here. And intentionality is to ask yourself a different question. It's not about what others expect of you or where someone else is. It is, am I operating at my full potential? Am I bringing my best to the table? Am I being a great steward of the gifts, skills, and talents that I've been blessed with? And intentionality to me is asking myself those questions, being honest about the answers, and then when I need to make adjustments, because when I'm honest with myself, I'm not doing it, then it's being willing to say, okay, something needs to change, and putting a plan in place to do it.
I am always such a fan of when things are presented from the opposite initially. It helps, I think, for us as humans, the more we do that and practice that, the more it really helps us see what it is we're focused on with greater clarity. And I've never heard it explained like that before with inertia as the opposite. And again, like I immediately put my hand up. I was that same school kid. I relate so much to that. And I relate so much to that, quite frankly, from my previous career too. I almost want to go there with you when I hear you obviously touched a little bit on your backstory already, but for me, before I started my business, I was a swim coach, and I spent 10 to 12 years in that career with success, as the same way you were alluding to there in school, without it ever feeling as though it was what I was supposed to be doing. And it felt like the world of it was going on around me, and I was just kind of going along for the ride and doing what it felt I was supposed to be doing. And now it couldn't be more opposite. Like now it's like every day the action is so intentional towards what the next step is. Things are not happening around me. They're happening for me and because of me. And that's what I love about these conversations is we get to hear someone like you come on and give us that insight from your perspective. And so I'm just curious now, coming from the years in school to now adult life and going through what you went through. I know you spent the better part of 2 decades in corporate before you started your business. So I would love to learn, did that carry on through that chapter in your life in any way too?
Yeah, it's a great question. And actually, for me, Steve, it was kind of a straddling posture that I took. So I had the career in corporate, and then I started, the side, now we call it the side hustle culture. Sure. Yeah. But that back then it was, hey, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something else. My career in corporate has been rewarding, both in terms of, all the things, titles and salary and all of these things. I'm getting great recognition for the work that I'm doing. But there was something in me that said, I think I'm supposed to be doing more than this. And so that started me down the path of kind of dipping my toes into doing different projects in my church. And then the more that I leaned into that, the more it became, okay, I think this is supposed to be something more. So the best way that I could describe it is I was doing this dance of holding on to what is comfortable. And I know that corporate isn't easy for everyone. And like I said, there were certainly challenges. There were days that I pulled my hair out, but I actually enjoyed the environment. It was something that I excelled at. And so to a degree, it was easy for me. And then there was this calling to step out and do something different and serve in a different way that quite honestly was really, really hard to me. It was really, really hard, right? Because the corporate environment, a lot of things are provided for you. So right. You've got the brand already developed, right. You got your desk, you got your phone, all of that. So it's really about being able to take advantage of the stage that you're given, to put your gifts, skills, and talents on display. But all the other things are really managed for you, right? And so stepping into this world of entrepreneurship was really, really scary. So I would describe it as kind of inching my way into it, and at the same time wanting to hold on to that safe corporate career, income, all of those things. And so, I held on to that for as long as I could. I'm not, feeling at peace, honestly, about letting it go. And it wasn't because necessarily that I couldn't be successful. It was just what I knew. Mm. And I think many of us, regardless of whether your story is like mine or not, there are things that it's inertia once again. There are things that that you're comfortable with that you can almost do with your eyes closed. It may be really, really hard to someone else, but it's really natural to you. Mm-hmm. And so the tendency is to stay in that space. And so I, straddled. And it really was, for me, it was conversations over time that got me to a place where I could release it. I remember, a conversation with a mentor actually in my corporate space who talked about my side hustle in such a way that it almost made me angry. He was like, it's a really cool hobby. And I was like, what do you mean? This isn't a hobby. But it was, Steve, it was really convicting for me. It was like, wait, if that's how he perceives it, what does that say about how much I'm putting into this, right? So it was conversations with people like Drew, who was one of my mentors, and then ultimately conversations with my mom. She kept pushing me like, Tam, why aren't you doing this? You can do it. Why aren't you doing it? And the reality that I had to face, and I'm sure many people that are watching and listening to us are going to have to face, is it's not all those reasons that we want to give. At the end of the day, it is fear. It is fear that I am going to fail. It is fear that I am going to make a fool of myself. It's a fear that I'm going to be exposed because I don't know everything, right? Because success often is not a straight line. There are going to be delays and detours and setbacks. And we want to avoid that. At least I do. I'm going to say I want to avoid that.
Right. And I think what's so important here, whenever I have a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs come on, and the one thing I always want to do whenever we start to share these kind of stories around, leaving corporate, starting our own thing, is that so much of what you're saying is still incredibly relevant to anybody who is committed to that corporate ladder and that path, and they want to get to where they want to get to. And something that you said there that I think I really want to just re-emphasize is that if there's a path that you're on, whether that's within an organization or starting your own, go do it and go do all of it, like all in, the whole thing. Because that's what you're alluding to here.
Yes.
It's not so much about corporate versus entrepreneurship.
Nope.
That just happens to have been where you are now, similar to me, and this is where I relate with you, that for whatever reason, there was something about the worlds that you and I were both operating in when it came to our employer that left us feeling like there was a comfort that came with it, that there was a safety that came with it. And for whatever reason, we felt as though we were selling ourselves short, and going to this word now that I really want to explore with you, the stewardship. Yeah. Is to be able to just say, like, hey, for whatever reason, whether it be God talking to me, whether it be my friends talking to me, or just the universe, signs, or whatever it might be, I feel as though I was put here to do something greater than the path that I'm currently on. And so, again, anyone listening to this, if you're in that position and you are bigger than that position, that you are better than that position, I want you to hear Tamara's words, like, okay, awesome. That's exciting. What you going to do about it? Like, what is some of that intentional conversation? What are some of those intentional exercises that are going to allow you to take those steps to prove that you are in fact ready to move through the growth journey that is your career and your life? And so I now want to go and explore that word stewardship more with you. What does that feel like to you? I'd love to get into the emotion, the less tangible stuff now, because for me, I think that's the beauty of these conversations for me, is when we get to hear, and what is it you're feeling when you talk about that? What is it that comes across you?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I've become acutely aware of, I would say over the last few years, is that we are incredibly, incredibly blessed. The generations that have come before us did not have the opportunities that we have. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are your life is pretty good. Now, even that's not to say that there are not challenges, there are not ups and downs, but your life is, you're listening to this on stable internet.
That's right. Yeah, that's the way you're going. Like, I get it.
You have the time to be able to carve out and whether you're driving to work or wherever, to listen to this, like in the grand scheme of the rest of the world, we are incredibly blessed. And so for me, that means, man, not everybody. I used to believe, Steve, that everybody had the same opportunity. So everybody just needs to pick themselves up by their bootstraps and make it happen. But what I've come to realize is opportunity is not equal. Everyone doesn't have this. No. And since I do, for me, that creates a sense of responsibility. Yeah. For whatever reason, I am one that has this opportunity when there are literally millions of people that do not. So I don't want to blow this and not do what it is that I'm supposed to do and make the contribution that I am supposed to make, because I feel like, well, I'm given this opportunity for a reason. And I believe personally that I'm going to have to give account for that, right? Because like every investor expects a return. And that's how I see one of the many facets of the creator is, hey, I've given you these things. I've given you these opportunities. I've given you these gifts, these skills, these experiences, these mentors that have spoken into your life, all of these things. What are you going to do with it? And that at the end of the day, that's what I really think stewardship is, which challenges the perception, because often when that word is used, it's used in the context of money. And I think that's actually selling the word short. Yeah. Stewardship is, man, I am in an amazing place. Sometimes it may not feel that way, but I'm in a pretty amazing place. What am I going to do with this life that I have been given? How am I going to make that indelible mark, that contribution that is going to make the world better while I'm here? And for me, Steve, when I'm no longer here.
This episode of Growth Ready is sponsored by Scribe, the workflow AI platform that makes documenting and sharing processes truly effortless. Folks, when I look at my day, I'm constantly fielding questions from my team. How to pull reports, where to find files, how to set things up. And Scribe has been a total game changer in giving me that time I need back in my day. In a matter of seconds, Scribe turns my workflows into a beautiful, shareable guide, complete with screenshots and text instructions that ensures I no longer waste time in my day with the same repetitive tasks and conversations. Since using Scribe at GrowthReady, I've personally loved how it uses AI to do the work for me by following every click in real time. I can literally see my step-by-step guide being built by Scribe while I create training plans and document workflows to better serve my team. I've saved hours, folks, literally hours in my week by being able to create PDFs or shareable links that I can send to clients in an instant. So I'm asking you, I'm telling you, free yourself and your team from manually documenting processes and join the 94% of the Fortune 500 and 4 million people worldwide already using Scribe to work 15 times faster. So head to scribehow.com. That's SCRIBEHOW.com and start working faster today.
For me, that means, as you are a podcaster, so you get this. The podcast that I'm honored to host isn't about how many. I want amazing listeners. I want all the views, all those things. But for me, it's not just about that. Sure. It's about having something that will speak for me when I am no longer here. So stewardship is making a mark with what you have been given, answering the calling on your life, and giving it your absolute best. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but giving it your absolute best, whether you have $100 or $1 million. Right. What are you going to do with what you have?
Oh, clip that one. I can just tell my editor. I can tell my producer right now. Clip it. Clip it. That's the one right there. That's the money. That's the money quote. I am so glad I asked you to further build upon this insight of stewardship because, as you alluded to, a lot of these words, stewardship, investment, like these are words that get thrown in very specific contexts way too often, and they need to be used in their more organic state of, in terms of where the word itself originated from, and not be so focused on, hey, it's specific to this industry of finances and investment, etc. Because so much of what you're alluding to is very much what this show is about. And people listening, I don't think people tune into this show for many other reasons other than what you just alluded to when it comes to, hey, I feel as though I have something. I got a gift. I got some tools. Someone equipped me with these tools, whether I believe in a higher power or not. Yeah. I got these tools. What I want to do about it? How can I make the most of them while I'm here? And to go even one step further to talk about what we can be doing after we've left too, and after we've passed. To say that, are you thinking on that level, and do you want to think on that level? If that is something that you're currently intimidated by and fearsome of, it's fine. It's totally fine. All I would say is that imagine what you would do while you're here if you started to think more about the ways in which your impact can still be felt after you're gone. Yeah. I think for me, that is something that this podcast is about. We have podcasts for the exact same reason. Mm-hmm. If I have 1,000 listeners, awesome. If I have 10 listeners, it is what it is. The numbers are the numbers. For me, I believe one of the gifts that I was given was to have these meaningful conversations and to be living at a time, to your point of how fortunate we are, to be living at a time where I can record the conversation and share the conversation. Are you kidding me? Other people get to listen to this incredible conversation that I'm having. What an amazing blessing and gift that is for so many, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. I mean, you're breaking it down. Like there was a time where we could have had this conversation. And in order for other people to hear this conversation, they would have to be physically in the room. Like you and I would have to be in the same room together, and everyone else would have to be there. Now, through the amazing technology that we have, you and I could be in completely different locations. We can share it on these platforms that, by the way, we can share on platforms for free in many instances. And literally people around the globe can be exposed to this message. Like, that's never been the case at any other time in history. Like, that's just, when I really think about that, it's amazing. And to even add on to that, Steve, I think about, sometimes I have, conversations, debates, I guess it could go either way with folks about social media, because I get it. There's certainly dangers and downsides to it. At the same time, there is so much good that can happen when people are intentional and choose to share content that inspires and uplifts and motivates. This time that we are in allows us to do that in literally a click of a button. In seconds, someone around the world can hear a message. It's just amazing. So if you have these gifts and talents to be able to inspire and motivate others, why not use them? And anyone, the reality is anyone can do that. Even if it's, a few minutes in the morning, few minutes in the evening, maybe you've got other things that you're doing, your job, your family, all of these things. Anyone can easily access these tools and make a difference in the world. And so the word that you used earlier that I really love is empowered. And I think that's the way that we need to think of ourselves, is not about the limitations, but we are empowered. There are so many things that we have at our disposal. And the question is, how will we use them?
Yep. That is the question. And I think in alignment with that too is, why are you doing it, right? Why are you trying to do it in the first place? And I love that this conversation is making my mind even go in that direction. It's just, and I hope it's doing the same for a few of our listeners too. It's like, if you've been doing it for a while now and you, for whatever reason, feeling as though the result has been a little stagnant or that you're not as fulfilled in the process and in the work that you're doing, check back in. Why are you doing it? Why did you start doing it? And then hopefully as you start to get clearer on those, you'll feel that whatever that flame was at first, maybe it's gone out a little bit. Hopefully it comes back a little bit. You see it reignite because of this kind of conversation and some of these questions that you're challenging us to ask here, Tamara. I really do appreciate it. And one thing I love about this show sometimes is that we can get, what does it say, almost 33 minutes into this thing. And I haven't said, hey, Tamara, tell us what you do for a living. Everybody's listening to this and like, wow, this is great. This is awesome. Yeah. It keeps alluding to this thing that she's now feels motivated to do. And it's like, what does she do? So I think this is a wonderful opportunity just to bring that in here and say, Tamara, tell us all about the work that you're obviously doing today.
Yeah. So I'm blessed to be able to wear a number of different hats, but what I'll speak to is the legacy project that I alluded to earlier, which is the Beacon Show. And the Beacon Show is all about being able to have conversations with leaders of faith in a variety of different fields and have them to distill their wisdom for the next generation of leaders. So part of this comes from my experience as a child, Steve. I grew up in church and I, wanted to serve and to honor God in the work that I was doing. My challenge was this, that the way that it was often spoken to was that the way that you do that is that you go into full-time ministry. And I just didn't feel that for me, that was the path. I really loved business, right? And so I was like, well, how do I do this? How do I honor God in the marketplace? And over time, I started realizing, okay, here are the ways that I can do this. And I can actually be a light in a place where maybe people wouldn't normally have exposure to this, because I'm working alongside these people and it's an opportunity for me to share my faith and more importantly, to live out my faith in different environments. And so the Beacon Show is about being able to give visibility to leaders that are operating in many different spheres. So in ministry, in corporate environments, in nonprofits, in TV and film, to show the next generation of leaders that you can honor God, you can serve God in many different ways. But what has become clear as I have talked to these leaders, that are in that 25 to 35 range, is they are desiring to make a difference. I want to make an impact. The problem is I don't know how. I don't know the steps. I don't know how to get from where I am to where I want to be. And so the Beacon Show is about creating an opportunity for those leaders that have blazed the way, those trailblazers that have achieved the level of success that many others often admire, to be able to say, okay, here's what not saying that your path is going to look that way, but here's how I got there. And here is how my faith actually became an asset, not a liability.
There's been a couple of episodes this year where we've talked about mentorship, and we've really gone into just what it really means at its core. I think sometimes that yet another word that can sometimes be very misconstrued, misunderstood, misused, however you want to put it. So much of what you're speaking to here from a legacy standpoint, for me, is honoring what optimal mentorship looks like. It's when we say, listen, this is my path, this is my journey. I'm not here to force it on you in the sense of, hey, this is how you should walk. This is the path that you should go. I'm simply providing the highlights, if you will, of how I got from where I once was to where I am today. And I pray in this work that there will be something about my journey that resonates with you enough to where you feel compelled to either take action or you just simply get greater clarity on what action could eventually look like. And I think that at its core is a gift that will only keep on giving, to your point, long after both you and I are gone. Like that, how can that not be a message that resonates over time? And how can that not be something that is consistently in demand for many, many years to come? And I can't help but ask you, where did this come from? Like, what was it that just sort of said, hey, listen, Tamara, you got to do it. You got to do this, and you got to do this now.
So for me, often, ideas come through conversations. And I often say that conversations create clarity. So I was thinking I had a podcast before that was focused on Christian publishing. So it was called Publishing Secrets. And on that show, I brought people on that had published books, and they talked about same kind of concept, the journey from have this idea to write a book to actually publishing it, because many people have an idea, but they don't follow through on it and publish it. But I felt as though I was being called to do something different and do something more. And so what I ended up doing, which I often do, Steve, is I started reaching out to people whose opinions I respect. And I set up conversations, and I just had, I had a few questions that I asked, and this recurring theme kept coming up through the conversations of, I see this thing that I want and that I believe that I'm called to, but I have no idea how to get from here to there. And what I would really like is for all these people that I see on social media that are doing it, I would like for them to actually tell me how they did it, right? And so when I kept hearing this continual theme, I was like, well, I guess that's it, right? It's really that simple. Is people want not necessarily a step-by-step, but they want clarity. You used that word earlier. They want ideas on what the path could look like. And we learn from hearing other people's journeys and stories. I'll confess, every time I do an interview, I'm like, man, I needed that. Like, thank you for speaking into my life about some things that I didn't even know that I needed to reflect further on or dig further into. I am blessed by every single interview that I host. And so it's been a blessing for me, but also for those that listen, because we just learn from each other. There's this biblical principle of iron sharpens iron. And we are in a time where that can happen through the power of technology. Just by listening to a conversation that two people are having, I can be sharpened. I can become better. I can become wiser after listening to 30, 45 minutes of conversation. So that's where the idea came from.
I love it. And I think for me, I've always enjoyed this process. Now you'll be episode 260, 270, something like that. And for me to have gotten 7 years pretty much into this process now of just having conversations with people, conversations bring clarity, as you just said. And for me, this has been educational in terms of how I get to sit and have these conversations. It's been therapeutic in so many different ways to be able to just hear, like, oh my gosh, you've done that's happened to you too. Like, and you just sort of go, oh my gosh. So this isn't just this thing that I'm experiencing anymore. Yeah. And also it allows a level of connection from a human to human standpoint that in this day and age, because of, and this is where maybe the conversation with technology starts to go the other way, sadly.
Yeah.
is that we sometimes dismiss connection, at least true connection, anymore. And we try to do it through our thumbs and texting and things like that, as opposed to doing it the way you and I are doing it. And I think if what you're doing with your show, and I'd like to think I'm doing the same, is showcasing the power of that, then how about it? Like what better way to be putting a message out to the world than just simply showcasing, hey, with conversation comes clarity, comes connection, and comes an awareness of self that, hey, I needed that. I needed to connect with another human today. Yeah. And if this is the only human that I connect with today, hey, thank goodness for this podcast, because it's allowed me to do exactly that. As I start to look at time and I think, okay, we're going to start wrapping this up soon, and I'm thinking to myself, something that Tamara said that immediately got my attention within the first minute of this episode was that if we just remain ready, we don't have to get ready. Mm-hmm. I would love for you to just, in your own words now, explain how you feel that on a day-to-day basis. What does you remaining ready look like so that you can avoid having to get ready when those situations come?
Yeah. So for me, it starts with spiritual readiness. So for me, what I have learned is that dedicating a part of the first part of my morning to prayer, to something edifying, sometimes that's reading a scripture or using an app, that's really important for me. And when I don't do that, I don't feel ready, because that addresses for me the part that is out of my control, right? There's so many things that are outside of my control. So that allows me to have that connectedness to the creator of, hey, you've got me. You know, there are things that are going to happen today, but you've got me. May catch me by surprise, doesn't catch you by surprise. I need that reminder. So that's part one. Part two is, okay, there are some things that I know are necessary to being effective at the work that I do. There's a lot that I don't know, but there are some things that I do know. So how do I keep up what is going on in my industry? Am I investing time to stay close to the skill sets that I need to develop? Am I taking intentional time to read, to educate myself? I believe in continuous education, right? So I need to continue to expose myself to things. As a, creator of content, I need to devote time to being able to dissect my thoughts. And even if I don't turn it into a blog or a social media post or a podcast right now, I need to put it somewhere. Mm-hmm. John Maxwell had this saying that, like, these 5 things that he does every day. And I don't remember, honestly, transparently, I don't remember every 5. But what really struck me about how he talked about that is he meant every single day, like on Christmas and on his birthday. And I'm not that good. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm not that good. Right. But what I learned from him was the power of consistency. And it's doing a lot of times the same things over and over and over again. Maybe not everything, but there's some core things that you know are important to being able to operate at your best. And it's dedicating the time on a daily basis to do that. So that's what I think of when I think of being ready. It's not accounting for every scenario, but it's about the spiritual, mental, emotional toughness that you need to be able to navigate whatever comes your way.
I love it because it takes care of just 2 components of what you're doing each and every day. You're filling your own cup spiritually there at the beginning. You're saying, hey, selfishly, like, what do I need? What do I need to feel my best? And then you're saying, okay, but now let's make it about everybody else. You know, these clients that I work with, this network, these followers that I have on social platform, whatever it may be. How can I do something for me that's going to pay off for them? The return's going to be for them. And I think that selfish and almost selfless approach, I hear that in that explanation, and there's that little 1-2, right? It's just, I love when we can condense it down. It's like, hey, here's a little 1-2 punch of how you can start the day. Like, what's that one thing you need to fill your own cup? What might be that one thing you can do just to simply say, hey, by me doing this and investing in myself, I know all of those who I get to engage with daily are going to be the beneficiaries. So when we can break it down and make it that simple, I always appreciate that. Tamara, listen, this was everything I was hoping it would be, and certainly much more. It was a wonderful conversation, and the one thing I know I will be doing, firstly, is giving your show a follow and checking out a few episodes coming up here in the future. But in addition to that, I would love for you to not only provide us information about the show, but tell all our listeners, where can we learn more about Tamara Jackson so that we can all be following what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website for The Beacon Show is beaconship.co. I'd love for you to join us there, be able to check out episodes of the show, as well as join our community. I'd also love for you to follow me on all platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And of course, our podcast episodes are on YouTube. I'd love for you to connect with me there. I will say transparently that Facebook is probably my platform of choice because of my age. So also feel free to look me up, my personal profile. I might be at my friend limit, but I'd love for you to give me a follow. That is the place that I interact the most. And that's where you get to see all sides of Tam. So I'd love to connect with some of your community there as well.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate that. And all that information, as always, will be available in the show notes. But for now, Tamara, I mean, I feel like I can call you Tam now. We must be friends, right? I call you Tam. Tam, I appreciate the time. I appreciate the generosity of insight. It's been therapeutic for me, beneficial for me. And I know that I'll be taking a lot of this on, as I know our listeners will be too. So just best of luck with everything moving forwards. And thanks again for the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. It's been great to be here.
And my thanks again to Tamara for joining us on this episode of Growth Ready. It's fair to say that there's a number of different insights that I could provide here as some form of food for thought as we wrap things up. But a question I want to ask you is this: how are you being a steward of the gifts that you've been given? It's a tough question, right? When you sit there and think about it, it's almost like, wow, Steve, are you trying to tell me that I'm not using the gifts that I've been given? No, that's not what I'm alluding to at all. What I'm suggesting, though, is that you take a minute just to simply check in and ask, do I feel as though my potential is being honored in the work that I'm currently doing? And if not, what is it that's preventing me from realizing it, from pursuing it? It doesn't necessarily have to be a right now thing. This is more about just some reflection, to stop, to take the time and get a little curious around what gifts you have that are currently going unused. What gifts do you have that you've dismissed for far too long? When it comes to being a good steward of what it is that you've been given and equipped with, going back to what Tamara suggested within the episode, we simply have to be intentional. We have to take the time and pinpoint strategically, where can I be including these gifts? Where can I be ensuring that I am making the most of what I've been given? When we do this and we do this well, we start to feel fulfillment, and we encourage an empowerment within us too. And that's only going to lead to consistent return, a feeling unlike any other when we know we are using the gifts that we've been given. And so I encourage you to take that time to just simply consider, is there a gift? Is there a talent? Is there something about your potential that's currently going underserved? And how could you simply take a step towards serving that part of you a little bit more consistently in the work that you do today? I appreciate Tamara for giving me this sort of food for thought and providing us the ability to learn about these types of questions and these types of ideas. These are powerful insights, and they force you to do a lot of internal work. And so if you felt any urge to do some of that work off the back of this episode, I'm so glad. But one thing I do ask for you right now is this: go ahead and share this episode with somebody else that you know would benefit from this kind of reflection, from this type of work, because they may just be waiting for this kind of conversation to come their way, to be that catalyst for the type of growth that they've been longing for within their lives. So share the show, make sure you're rating the show, and of course, subscribe to the show. Why would you not subscribe? Making sure that you're going to receive every single episode right in your inbox, right on your phone, every single week from this point onwards. Best of luck with anything and everything that you've got going on in your world, and I look forward to doing this again with you very soon. Bye for now. Thanks again to Scribe for sponsoring the episode, and remember to head to scribehow.com to automatically turn your processes into a step-by-step guide in seconds. So stop answering the same repetitive questions and work 15 times faster by heading to scribehow.com and start working faster today.
Thank you for tuning in to Growth Ready. If you liked what you heard and are feeling ready to grow, be sure to leave a 5-star rating, subscribe to the show, and share the episode with someone you know is ready to fuel their growth journey today. We love our community, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at podcast@growthready.com. And until next time, we are Growth Ready, and you will be too.